Are you ready for the quantum age?
Humanity's next step in evolution?
Dreamvisions 7 Radio Network invites you to the extraordinary platform of evolutionary voices for the quantum age.
Let's explore. Learn more about this upcoming age where we bridge science with spirituality.
Where potentiality meets reality.
Where we take compassion into action.
Our trailblazers and visionaries will ask the whys, the what-ifs, while igniting continuous possibility.
Come along with us into an age beyond what we know today, where we can grow together in unity consciousness.
Experience evolutionary voices for the quantum age, Monday through Friday at 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. Eastern on Dreamvisions7radio.com. Welcome to Living the Quantum Dream with your host, Cynthia Sue Larson, inviting you to explore ideas about how you can enjoy a better way of life from one of today's top experts in quantum consciousness. Cynthia Sue Larson is a life coach and the best-selling author of Quantum Jumps, Reality Shifts, High Energy Money, and Aura Healing Meditations, who has been publishing the free monthly Reality Shifters e-zine since 1999 through realityshifters.com. Living the Quantum Dream with Cynthia Sue Larson is part of Evolutionary Voices for the Quantum Age, heard Monday through Friday at 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. Eastern on the Dreamvisions 7 Radio Network.
Hello, I'm Cynthia Sue Larson, and our guest today is Russell Targ, a physicist and author, pioneer in the development of laser and laser applications, and co-founder of the Stanford Research Institute investigation of psychic abilities in the 1970s and 1980s. Targ's work in investigating remote viewing has been published in scientific journals, and he is the author and co-author of many books and producer of the new documentary film, Eye Spies. Welcome, Russell.
Hi, I'm very happy to be with you.
Well, we were chatting a little before we started, and you asked if I'd had a chance to see Eye Spies, and I have. And I was just mentioning, this is a movie I think everybody should see. It's a documentary. I was blown away by it, even though I know the story. I know you. I've known you for a long time. But even so, there's something amazing about seeing the chronology of events. And, of course, people listening to this interview, hopefully they're going to go watch the documentary. I saw it on Amazon. It's really easy to find it there. But I'd like to start the interview by asking what you most hope people get from seeing this documentary film.
Well, the most amazing thing about the film is that we have the CIA on screen with us. As we did a 10-year program for the CIA looking for Russians, Chinese, finding American hostages, teaching people how to get in touch with their psychic abilities, and that had been my passion for many decades. But when I wanted to record this, make a documentary, I knew the most important thing is to get the CIA contract monitors, the senior people there, on screen, telling us that they had been polygraphed, watched our program for a decade, and what Targ said really happened. It was really true. And from my point of view, that is one of the key things that gives credence to the film, that we have the contract, we have the CIA giving testimony that it really happened.
Yes, it's a remarkable thing to have achieved, and I think it's a testimony to your excellent work in the field for all these years, that you've just been the foundation of the remote viewing project, and also helping to popularize the whole idea. And despite some people, lots of pseudo-skeptics saying that this can't be possible, when obviously it's quite efficacious. So before we go much further, could you describe in layman's terms what you mean by remote viewing and why you were studying this at Stanford Research Institute?
Remote viewing is the ability that we all have to quiet our minds and look into the distance, look into the future, and describe and experience what's going on there. So as a physicist, the most important thing that I want to communicate is that this is not New Age. This has been known for thousands of years, and modern physics has finally caught up with us. So I would say this is a non-local ability, and what I mean by that is that With psychic abilities, you can describe what's going on across the street in Palo Alto, where I live, or you can quiet your mind and describe what's going on in Soviet Siberia or in Russia. And the amazing thing is that it's no harder to describe what's going on in Russia than it is across the street. So our measurement is the accuracy and the reliability. And we've done hundreds of trials, and what we know is that it's no harder to look thousands of miles than it is across the street. And in physics today, you would call that a non-local ability. It's independent of space. And the most remarkable thing is that it's also independent of time, in that we were able to describe things days before they actually occurred. One day the CIA came to us and they wanted to know what was going to happen 3 days in the future at particular geographical coordinates, latitude and longitude. So the psychic for that experiment was Ingo Swann. Swann is a New York artist and really the father of remote viewing in the modern era. That he taught us how to do remote viewing. When we first got a program to investigate psychic abilities for the CIA, my partner, Hal Putoff, and I are both laser guys, so we would do experiments like, can you tell whether the laser is turned on or off in the next room? Can you describe the picture in the envelope? And Ingo said, I can focus my attention anywhere on the planet. What you're describing, what you want me to do, the trivialization of my abilities, give me something worth doing or I'm going home. So Ingo really is the one who said, the easiest thing to do is describe what's going on where another person is located. And we did that for the first year of our program. But in this case, the CIA wanted to know what's going on at some distant coordinates 3 days in the future. That is presumably far away and 3 days in the future. And we had done enough experiments, so we expected that this would be no more difficult. So Ingo sat down and said, well, this is a very interesting target you got for me. It's like pyrotechnics, it's like the 4th of July. I see beautiful spirals up in the sky, all different colors. Get me some colored pencils. I'm happy to draw this. This will be fun to draw. And he drew the spirals up in the sky, and he said, and there are a bunch of trucks off to the side. That's what I get. And we have this very nice drawing that he made that looks like a 4th of July photographed on somebody's beach. And we gave that to the CIA. We didn't know what the hell it was, of course. Since they knew what the target was, they had an idea what it was, but they weren't telling us. 3 days later, CIA came back and said, you really hit the nail on the head. What we gave you are the coordinates of a Chinese atomic bomb test that was going to happen today, which is 3 days in the future. And what and they did the bomb test. They did the test and it failed. And what Ingo drew was a 3-color representation of a failed atomic bomb test. That is, if you try and fire an atomic bomb and it doesn't work, you just wind up burning uranium in the atmosphere, and that burns in a beautiful pyrotechnic way in all different colors. And Ingo described that. So as soon as Ingo described what he psychically saw, the CIA knew that the test would take place and it would fail. So
wow.
This is an example of looking 10,000 miles to the west and 3 days in the future and exactly describe what was there. And we did that for a decade. So the easy question is, well, were you any good at it? Did it work? And the answer would be is the CIA is not easily amused, so that if we were not successful, they wouldn't have given us millions of dollars a year for a decade. In fact, for 2 decades, they wouldn't have given that money to us if we were not successful.
So how did you get in from the lasers over into this brand new field of remote viewing? How did that switch over occur? I mean, maybe don't tell anything that's classified, of course, but just in general, what motivated you to make that change? And because obviously you were already interested in this kind of topic, and I'd love to hear about how your interest was.
Well, you've got to know I was interested in psychic abilities because I was willing to bet my career that I can move from being a laser pioneer to starting an ESP lab. So I got 3 little children, my wife to support in Palo Alto, so I had to be pretty sure that this was actually going to work. But I had a lifetime interest in psychic abilities. I was a very successful card player as a little kid, and as a young teenager, I was an amateur magician doing stage magic for birthday parties and art openings, sort of thing. And I would have the experience from time to time of being on the stage pretending to read somebody's mind, where I had already read a little slip of paper which I would hold to my forehead and pretend to read psychically, but of course I had already read it. And I knew, for example, I knew that some woman was looking for a dog. So I would say, there's somebody here looking for their dog that's lost. And the person would hold up her hand and say, yes, can you help me find my dog? The answer to that is no, I can't help you find your dog, but I can see your house, and I see walking up the stairs, and your bedroom is on the left, and there's a patchwork quilt on the bed, and she would be amazed, and so would everybody else, because it's an instance where I was able to supplement my magic trick with some ESP that actually came my way. And I've subsequently talked with people like Melbourne Christopher, the great American magician, and the great Kreskin, whom I know somewhat, and they said, oh yes, sometimes we're doing a trick on the stage, and we get a psychic flash, and we can supplement our stage magic with whatever ESP comes our way. And I had those experiences from time to time.
So you obviously had a supportive home environment. Your parents were okay with this, and that's great.
Oh yeah, my father was very interested in magic. He had published the biography of Helena Blavatsky, who was the founder of the Theosophical Society. And I was actually a child theosophist. As a graduate student at Columbia, I would sometimes go down to the Theosophical Society in New York because they were very interested in psychic stuff. They had fairies in their garden, and psychic abilities were taken for granted.
I love that. I think that's so amazing and so wonderful. And I know my audience will be happy to hear that.
And in that period, I built an ESP teaching machine. This is a 4-choice random number generator where you have to pick which of 4 buttons is going to be illuminated, and people can learn to do that with feedback and reinforcement. And there's a pass button, so you're never forced to make a choice.
That was at Columbia University?
Well, after I left Columbia, I was building lasers in the meantime.
Okay.
Just off to the side, I built this ESP game. And the ESP teaching machine, I was invited at one point to give a lecture. I was a laser guy at this point. I was invited to give a lecture to a NASA conference on speculative technology at St. Simon's Island. And I went to this conference in early May of 1972, and I brought my ESP game with me, so that when I met Werner von Braun, who was there, he did very well on my 4-choice ESP teaching machine. So wow. He was all excited about that. And von Braun showed that to James Fletcher, who was the administrator of NASA, and Edgar Mitchell was there, who had just come back from space having a samadhi experience. So with the encouragement from Werner von Braun, Fletcher said, yes, I could give these guys some dough. So it was based on my really happenstance visit to this conference